on this episode of the Data Nerd Podcast.
I've actually
Yeah.
been able to, over the last couple of years, track the salary range associated with the roles that had them listed. And for analyst level roles in this last report, I see a range of, on the average low side.
I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment wherever you listen. And for all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, head over to the datanerdpodcast.com. Dustin Schimek, welcome back to the Data Nerd Podcast.
Hey, Nisar, great to be back where it all started. I think I was on the first episode with you.
Very first guest, where it all started 2 years ago. Can you imagine? It's been 2 years.
I can, well, I mean, I can and I can't. I mean, it seems like it wasn't that long ago that we first did that episode, but, it does feel like you've been on quite a journey. I mean, I got to be next to you when you won the Vizzy for content creation. So hats off to you. You've done an amazing job with this.
No, I appreciate it. And listen, I owe some credit to you because you helped me get started and you kind of advised me too. So, that's what this is about, right? At the end of the day, I do this podcast. You have a podcast too. We do it to meet people and to engage
Right.
and network, right? And
For sure.
that's the fun of it.
Absolutely. No, it's been a blast. It's been a blast just seeing this podcast take off too. So again, hats off and glad to be back.
Yeah. So that first episode, even though it was the first, looking back at my statistics and data, it is my most listened to podcast
Wow.
episode. So
That's cool.
I think that the combination of things. I think having someone like you who talks about data careers, and if anyone follows you on LinkedIn knows that you're the guy that you need to follow if you're looking to get into data or any type of data careers jobs or whatnot, because you have your weekly Friday data. It's a newsletter now, right?
Turned it into a newsletter. Yeah, I call it the Data Jobs Rundown. I wasn't never have been quite too sure what to call it. I do know that a lot of people are waiting for it every Friday, so I can tell you I feel the pressure to get it out every Friday. But it's a rundown. It's a rundown of the data related jobs that I see shared in my LinkedIn feed. I've been doing it for a few years now. Every Friday, I just share a summary, link to the post by the individual that posted it. These are just I realized a few years ago that I had this phenomenon happening where folks were reaching out to me saying, "Hey, have you heard of any roles that are open?" And then I'm thinking to myself, "Yeah, I see tons of people posting positions in my LinkedIn feed each week." And so then I thought maybe I could just consolidate all of those into one post and share it out so that all those folks that are looking can see what I'm seeing. So that's how it got started.
And then it just grew from there, right? Is that like how
It turned out to be my most popular piece of content, and it was
Yeah.
totally organic. Yeah.
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 No, that's great. But did you want to do something like that, or it just kind of fell into your lap and you ran with it and something that you enjoy to do?
I do enjoy doing it. I enjoy kind of keeping a pulse on where the market is at and, see who and what companies are sharing what types of roles. I do enjoy that. I've always enjoyed putting together kind of reports and market analysis, like my jobs report that we're going to talk about later. But
Yeah.
I never set out to do that. No, I was, I definitely was not smart enough to know that, okay, there's going to be this need to put together a list of all of the roles I see shared in my LinkedIn feed and that people would like to look at that every week. I had no idea until I just tried it, and there's been millions and millions and millions of views on that over the last few years. So,
Well, I'll tell you because I teach data analytics course, right, at the college level,
yeah.
10 certification courses, and every cohort, I tell them to connect with you and
That's
follow
nice of you.
you because
all of them are looking for roles in data, right? And
Hmm.
what better outlet to have than somebody who not just posts the jobs, but also has the link to the hiring manager that you can connect to directly, right? That's probably the biggest obstacle for people, and you make it easier for people to get in touch with those that they need to kind of promote themselves.
Well, and that's the interesting thing is, I think folks that aren't active on LinkedIn, they sometimes will say to me like, well, I heard you're active with LinkedIn. I never really got into it. I've heard that it's not very helpful, and I say, well, I tell them about this rundown, and I say, that it's not just it's not quite the same as some of the career sites that are out there where it just links jobs from a company. You can actually see who posted these roles, and it's not just from my rundown. I mean, you can once you build up a network, you can see who within your network is sharing out roles, and connect with that person, schedule a coffee chat, try to network with them, see if you have any second degree connections that can introduce you to them. And it really leverages the power of LinkedIn, So anyways, like I said, I didn't concoct this plan to do this myself. It just came together organically, but I guess it makes sense in hindsight.
You also had a couple of conferences, right? The Data Careers Summit.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, we did four of those. Theme was kind of how to break into and move up in the data space. And those, we're just really fortunate to have a lot of great speakers and experts from around the industry come together and share their expertise. I'm fortunate to be in a formal position now at an organization, MedStar Health, where I kind of help folks do the same. I help folks that are looking to maybe move into an analytics role or develop part of their role, make part of their role data focused and help them get connected with the right resources and skills, and then also help continue to upskill our existing data practitioners at our organization. And so I'm fortunate to have been placed in this space and be able to help practitioners from behind the scenes.
No, that's great. You've also given lectures or speeches at conferences as well, right? I know at the Tableau conference last year,
Yeah, yeah.
also talking there as well. So, I'm sure this is something that not only um, I think you have to enjoy as well, right? And I'm sure it's something that you enjoy doing.
It is. Yeah, it is. And actually, I got the opportunity to speak at a conference I hadn't been to before this fall, HDA, the Healthcare Data and Analytics Association conference.
Where was that?
And that was in Nashville, actually.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah, it was really nice. It was my first time to Nashville, first time to that conference. And I was fortunate enough to have one of the kind of larger sessions there, and which caught me by surprise. It was in like kind of the main. My session was in kind of the main room, which was an honor, and it was on this topic of building an analytics community of practice, which we've been working on and investing in very strongly at MedStar Health. I lead the analytics community of practice there, and I've been able to speak on lots of topics over the years, both as a practitioner and then now as a enablement leader and community builder. And to your point, I do love it. And you do get to meet a lot of cool people along the way. So
I'm sure. Yeah. No, that's great. So let's get into this, right?
yeah,
2 years ago, you came up with the your data jobs report.
yeah.
Basically, um,
Actually, it was like 5 years ago. Yeah,
oh, was it 5 years?
yeah.
No, well, no, you were on my podcast 2 years ago, but the
Oh, right,
report,
right, right. Yes,
yes.
yes, yep.
So, but and at that time, you went through an updated data jobs report. But you
Gotcha. Okay.
started
Yep.
5 years ago, right?
I did. Yeah, I started it actually because actually it might have been it was in 2019 that I started it, so 6 or 7 years ago actually.
Oh, wow.
Um
Yeah.
yeah, I started it just again, same thing, as I was talking about with the LinkedIn post that I do is it just developed organically. I was leading an analytics team at the time, and um I started to get asked an increasing number of questions, both internally and externally, on, hey, what does it take? I've noticed something's going on with this data industry. It seems like there's more data roles emerging, and like, how do I break into it, or how does my son or daughter break into it? And being a data person, I had my own perspective, obviously, from being in the industry myself. And I was in a manager role at the time. So I think I had a good anecdotal perspective, but I wanted to have a data driven perspective. And so what I did was I started to build a database of 100 roles. I scraped 100 position postings. I used to do it every 6 months. I do it every year now, just for data and analytics related jobs, and pulled out the education requirements, the experience requirements, the skill requirements, things like that, and was able to put together a view of, okay, what is the market saying that they want when we aggregate these results? What are the skills that people are asking for? How much experience do you need? Do you need formal education? Things like that. And so it gave me a data-driven perspective on that. And now the cool thing is since I've been collecting that data for 6 or 7 years, I can trend it over time, which gives an interesting perspective as well,
Oh yeah.
because some things have changed.
I'm sure. I'm excited to get into this because
Yeah.
I think 2025 there was a lot of new and emerging technologies, I think.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see the results for this. So last time we went through, I think you went through a top 10 list
Sure.
of skills, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
do we want to let's count down from 10 to 1
Cool.
the top 10 skills in what would I say, in job postings for data careers?
Yeah.
Data
So
pool,
what it
data.
Yeah, what it would be is, so we're looking at, and this is an important distinction to make, it's data and analytics related titles. So, we're looking at roles like data analyst, analytics manager, director of analytics, VP of analytics, things like that. We're not focusing on AI related roles here, right? I think there's actually an opportunity probably for an AI jobs report to
Yeah.
be born here pretty soon. We're not looking at data engineering roles here, et cetera. It's really these data and analytics related and associate titles. That's where the 6 or 7 years of data is built off of. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get into top 10, but just a side note here.
Yeah.
Uh, is AI not embedded in some of like it may not be called out specifically, but
Hmm.
and you may talk about this as we go through the skills and your insights as
Yeah.
well. But I'm sure you're
Yeah.
seeing a lot more of that in the description itself, right?
And that's one of the insights that I have in general is just we are seeing like kind of a wider range of skills mentioned, and some of the more advanced skills mentioned in some of even the data and analytics related job postings. The word AI is called out in some, it hasn't bubbled into the top 10 yet in terms of, a term that's called out that frequently specifically for data and analytics job postings. But there are also skills that dance around that. There's some data science related skills that are definitely growing within these data and analytics job postings. Same thing, like, we'll get into it, but
Yeah,
Python has grown significantly. And so, things that kind of dance around it, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure. Okay, so let's do it. Let's start from 10 going up to 1, right? So
yeah.
top 10 skills based on your analysis of job postings, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So this last year here, we pulled together 100 data and analytics related job postings, and what I'm going to share with you are based on this last report, the percentage of positions that listed a particular skill. So, do we want to start with number 10, or we want to
Let's
start with
start.
number one?
Let's go 10 to 1.
10 to 1. Okay,
10 to
so I got
1.
to scroll
And
down
and
here. I've got
and
the
do
report in
we
front of me.
do you also include salary ranges in these skill sets, or is that a separate type of analysis?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I haven't looked at it from the perspective of like for a position that mentions this skill, what is the salary range? I have looked at it for like the position level. So like for a,
Okay,
you know, independent contributor analyst up to like a, senior director, what are the salary ranges there? But we can get into that.
we could talk
Yeah.
about that after. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But that
All
would
right.
be an interesting view, Nisar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So one, two,
All right.
three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, let's start with 10. All right. Just want to make sure I'm starting with. Okay, so this is actually this goes really well off of what we were just talking about. So um, I'm actually I'm gonna combine 11 into 10 as well. So 11 was actually R, and R has actually fallen out of the top 10, which is an insight in and of itself. But stats is number 10. Anything statistics related or statistics tool related, I lump into statistics. So if a specific stats tool is called out, um, I lump that into stats. But 21% of roles listed some sort of experience in statistics in the job posting. R was at 17%. And R has stayed pretty flat over time. It's not that it's dropped off. It
Yeah,
hasn't increased at the same rate as some of the others.
that's interesting. I see R as a skill set that relates more probably to the data scientist type of roles, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, so do you think that data scientist roles are also flattened as well as a result of that?
I don't necessarily think that. I mean, when I look at the roles that I'll just give an anecdotal perspective. I mean, here I'm looking at data and analytics related titles. When I put out my data jobs rundown each week, that includes everything, data science, data engineering, data analytics, all levels of roles up to VP, and in there, I do still see quite a few data science roles, and I haven't anecdotally noticed a significant drop off there. So, um, I feel like no, but
But
that's
listen,
anecdotal.
it's
Yeah,
still top 10, right? I'm this is I mean,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
still something that people are looking for.
Right.
Okay, good. All right, so let's jump to number 9.
Okay, number 9 is one that's grown for sure over time. So, in terms of the percentage of positions mentioned it, so data storytelling. So it's not always called out. I do some analysis on my own here to group these together, but it's called a variety of things, right? Storytelling with data in the position posting, data storytelling specifically. Sometimes they'll call out a phrase like being able to, present your story based on your insights,
Yeah.
things like that. I lump
Yeah.
that kind of stuff together as data storytelling. 23% of roles mention that, which is really interesting because this wasn't even one that I was tracking pre 2022. And since then, it's gone from 12% of postings up to 23%. I just see this little slope up on the trend. And that definitely matches what I'm seeing and hearing anecdotally just
Yeah.
within my own role and working with practitioners.
Uh, Me personally as well, that's something that I've also grown in over the years. And I see actually I think this is a more important skill set now than it was before because we're talking about AI, right? AI can replace a lot of things that we may or may not do. Right? We're not going to talk about what AI can replace, but the talk is there. Data storytelling, though, is something that I think is hard to replace using AI because it's a very human interaction, human connection. That's the nature of data storytelling. And I think that's something that's still needed, um, even more so now than before.
Totally. Absolutely. Absolutely. And as I think about presentations I've put together or presentations I see analysts put together, I think that the at the executive level and the leadership level, I think that they have started to get more exposure to some of these data storytelling techniques. And, it's kind of like once you've had a good story told with data for you that you've been able to present, like you don't ever want to go back to to not having that, right? And so it makes sense the demand is going to increase over time.
100%. And the misconception, I think some people think like, why is data storytelling important? It's not the entertainment factor. It's not like you're going to watch a movie, but
Right.
there are some parallel. But what makes a movie engaging?
Hmm.
You remember movies based on the story and how they make you feel.
Right.
If you present data in a way that will make people remember what you're presenting, at the end of the day, that's essentially what you want. You want people to remember it and action it. And if you can connect to them at a level emotionally that speaks to them, it's much more impactful.
100%.
Yeah, so that
100%.
that is a good one. I would say that's one of my favorite ones on your list already. I know we're at
Yes,
9, but
mine
you
too.
know that's
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of my
yeah.
favorites. All right, let's
Okay,
get to
okay.
number 8.
8 is Excel, and Excel is one where it's kind of in the same boat as R. It's a little bit higher percentage. 27% of roles mentioned Excel. When I look at the trend, and I'm going to be publishing out this in report format out on LinkedIn
Mm,
in the coming weeks, but so you can take a look at it when I do. We're previewing it here, the
yeah,
verbally on the Data Nerd podcast. But Excel is the line's pretty flat. It starts like back in 2021 at around 22%. It's at 27%. It's gone kind of up and down. But it's one that's it stays there. It just hasn't grown.
it's been there for a long time,
Yes, it has.
right? And people
Yep.
say, "Oh, we don't need Excel anymore." Excel's not dead.
Right. It's
It's
not. Yeah.
there, and it'll always be there. I think there's another skill set. I won't give it away now, and I think I know which one you may be thinking about as I'm mentioning it, which is also not
Yeah.
dead. But but Excel is probably something that now you need to know as a base level skill set to get into any type of analyst role.
It's funny, Nisar, you say that because even as being in an enablement role, I don't do formal Excel training myself, but I will say that there's times where I'm working with folks or I'm doing office hours where something will come up, a use case will come up where I'll pull it up. I'm writing formulas in there, I'm doing it in front of a group of people and it still has value.
It does. It
Yeah.
does.
Hmm.
It's it's one of those things that stands the test of time.
Right. Yep. Totally. Um, Next one, what are we at here? Are we at 7?
We're at 7. Yeah.
Yep. 7 is so this one is interesting. 7 is management. And now this is one where there's two ways we could look at the list, right? I could filter out management. Um, if we only wanted to talk about independent contributor roles, right? Because management is going to be associated with those manager plus level roles in here for the
Mhm.
most part. But I left it in for the top 10 list today, this is where it falls kind of overall in the grand scheme of things. 28% of the roles mentioned management, but I see those almost exclusively in those, some in the senior analyst roles and above, but mostly in management and above. And um, that's one thing to consider, though, because if you do want to get one of those manager plus level roles, getting some level of management experience, regardless of what it is, I think is going to be helpful. If it's data team management, that's I think that's double bonus for hiring managers. But that came in at number 7 overall.
I feel it's a very broad skill, is
Oh
it
yeah.
not? So, if a job posting says you need management experience, what does that mean? Like, how do you interpret that?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll see it expressed as people management or having a team of direct reports, of 2 or more or something like that. And that's what I kind of group together as management. And so, I think like sometimes probably, some hiring managers or, if you're doing an internal transfer, from a non-tech role to a tech role, maybe be able to get away with counting management experience as having managed non-technical roles, but I think the preference is to have some level of management in some sort of technical capacity, to get into those upper tier roles. Just to jump ahead to an insight I was going to share later is the one benefit of that. For some folks will obviously not want to be interested in management. That's totally okay. Like you can make a huge
Yeah,
impact as an independent contributor in data, and that's much needed.
I've
I was
seen
just going to
that
say,
trend
yeah,
change.
yeah,
Historically speaking, people thought that you have to get into management to move up in your career. Now I don't I see two different tracks, and even if you're
right,
individual contributor, you can move up in your career.
totally. Totally. And when we talk about salary a little bit at the end, the salary ranges are pretty strong still, even though there's been, I understand it's been a rough job market over the last year plus. But if you get in and even if you get into an independent contributor senior analyst role, the salary ranges are still pretty strong there. And if you want to get into management or above, there's pretty significant variation on the higher end there. So it's something to keep in mind. It's
Yeah,
all up to where you want to go with things.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, where we're at number 6.
Yes. Number 6. industry experience. So this is one. Sometimes I
Mm,
filter this out depending on how we want to look at it. But
mm.
again, I left everything in here for this top 10 just to call everything what it is. But that's one that I see mentioned more frequently. So it's 35% of positions as of this last report. That's trended almost doubled over time. So from when I'm in the view I'm looking at right now from 2021, I've got that as my starting point in this particular view. I'm seeing 17% up to 35% in this last report. So folks are wanting, a deeper set of skills, right? And then also, if possible, some experience in the industry that you're in. So
You know
yeah,
why this one? Okay. So if you're somebody that wants to get into data and you don't have the experience working in with data or an analytics role,
yeah,
if you already have that industry experience, this will be this you can leverage that to then make yourself valuable for any type of analytics role because you part of being a data analyst is knowing the industry, right? And so
hmm
if you leverage that and say, okay, I don't have the analytics role, I have the industry experience, but I've taken, here's my portfolio, here's the data I've worked on, people will give you the opportunity.
100%. And I see this, working for a healthcare organization, a large healthcare institution. There are folks that have tremendous healthcare experience, and then they pick up some data and analytics experience as maybe 25% of their role. Maybe don't have that
Mm.
analyst as a title yet, and then, I've seen them successfully, in some cases, move into a formal analytics role. And I'm starting to really believe that is a pretty, you know, interesting path to consider taking. If you have deep industry experience, where analytics can benefit, your organization or that industry, like consider building up that analytical skill set while you're already in a role that's maybe non-technical, and then, work to try to make that transition. And then the sky's the limit in terms of the opportunity from there.
Yeah, you can kind of create your own opportunities then.
100%.
Yeah,
Yep.
good. I like that one. All right, number
Uh,
five.
Number 5 is Python, and this is one that has increased significantly as well for the duration I'm looking at right here. So I'm going back to 2021. I'm seeing 15% of roles mentioning Python. I'm seeing 36% in this last report. So that is Python's it's cracked the top 5.
So this one's interesting because I get asked when I teach my courses, do I need to know Python to be a data analyst? I tell them, no, you don't have to.
Right.
I don't think it's a requirement because sometimes I feel that Python kind of leans into maybe the data engineering, data science type of roles more
Yep.
than the data analyst. Is that what you're seeing? Um,
That's how I think of it still as well. I mean, I think I do think of it as a really strong bonus because, if you think about your personal value proposition, and I even think of like, this emerging title of analytics engineer. It's maybe not even so much emerging anymore, but I think it's out there. But someone that can do some of the engineering work, kind of put together a turnkey analysis, get the data, clean it up, tell a story with it, build an analysis, maybe do some data science work, et cetera. I think it feeds into that trend. So I think it's definitely very much to your advantage. If you have some basic expertise here and can apply it. But I view it the same way as you, Nisar.
do you still see it as a not a requirement, but a good to have in these job positions?
I think I would not start with it if I was starting from scratch. I think about the persona of the individual I just mentioned, where maybe you're building up some skills and contributing as a data analyst, even without having the title within a job function that's maybe non-technical. I don't think that that's where I would start. I would start with some of these ones that I'm going to mention towards the top of this list.
Okay,
But then I think that getting into some of the more advanced skills and building it over time will be very helpful to one's personal value proposition. Yep.
good.
Yep.
All right, so let's get into where are we at? Number four?
Number four. And I think this number 4 through 2, these are all pretty close. Number 4 is Power BI. And that one has gone up over time as well. Again, just to put numbers to it over the duration of this report. 10% back in 2021, up to 40% in this last report.
Oh,
And it's just
wow.
kind of like a slow burn
Yeah.
upwards. That one has I think in the last couple of reports, it's been like number 3, and we'll get into why it bumped to 4, but it didn't bump to 4 because of decreasing demand. So that one's a pretty
Yeah.
strong one, and that matches anecdotally what I've seen in the industry over the last 5 years.
Same here. And I'm sure the other tool is going to come up in your top 3, but we'll talk about that. I think the top 2, it's one of the top 2 in the business intelligence space.
For sure. Yep. So number 3 is an interesting one. This is one actually that's kind of a new entrant to my report. And it's increased just so significantly that I had to think about how to group this one together and put it in. And I'm still open to feedback on this one from the community, but I put it in very broadly as cloud. And so
Okay.
I actually looked at it, and 10% of positions just mentioned the word cloud in the requirements. Um, as that literally just the word cloud mentioned in some
Mhm.
context.
Mhm.
But we have anything from AWS and Azure and some of the cloud computing platforms to Databricks and Snowflake, and I'm still thinking about how to group all of these together. Like I see more Databricks versus Snowflake than I did in the past. Individually, these are small percentages, and probably wouldn't be in the top 10. But when I group all of it together, it's like I was like, holy crap, it's really strong. It's 44%. It's almost half of the positions. And that's up from like 7% in
Yeah.
2021, right?
I mean,
Yeah.
but that's what you're seeing just
Yeah.
working in the industry, right? Working in data
Yeah.
analytics. It's everything's shifting to the cloud.
Right. 100%. Yep.
Uh, Being on premises is yesteryear, right?
And I think that as organizations make that shift, what I suspect is happening here is I see, and it's an inflection point when I look back just to 2 years ago. I mean, it really flips and goes, almost doubles. I think what's happening is organizations that are making that transition are hiring these new technical roles, and analysts are lumped into that, and they're wanting some help on these transitions from those roles. That's what I suspect.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
interesting insight. All right, so that was number 3, right? So we're
Yeah.
at number 2.
Yep, we're at number 2. Number 2 is one that we both know well. That is Tableau, and that was 47% of positions. Pretty flat. As a matter of fact, it was 47% 2 years ago here. So it's been pretty flat. I'd say the insight here is even though it is higher than Power BI, when I look at the trend, Power BI is drifting up,
Yeah.
and Tableau is it 3 to 5 years ago was drifting up, and then it's stayed flat around
Yeah.
that 45 to 47% mark.
So why do you think that is? What obviously Tableau is still ahead of Power BI in terms of when you're looking at its jobs report, but you're seeing the
Hmm.
trend um where it's a little flat. Do you have any insights in why you think that that's the case?
Hey, this is an interesting one, right? Like I think in some cases, so I think the demand for data viz has continued to grow over these last few years, but I think like some of the net new demand has been filled by Power BI usage. I think that Tableau has a very strong install base.
Mm.
There's a lot of organizations that have very large deployments of Tableau, high viewer, high license counts, things like that, and I think that really drives the demand for developers for Tableau.
Yeah.
But I just think some of that demand for data visualization, demand for insights, I think some of the net new demand has been filled on the data viz side of things by Power BI.
So as I was going into this, I actually would not have been surprised if you had put Power BI ahead of Tableau in
Yeah,
this year's
right.
report.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm still, I still see Tableau ahead, which I mean, it's still holding its spot there, right? It
Right.
was number 2 even 2 years ago,
Yep.
right? So That's not to say that it's if you know Tableau and you're in Tableau, it's still something that's sought after, and it's still something that you can leverage for a lot of opportunities.
100%. Yep. 100%. I think of it as kind of these top skills. I think is kind of, especially the data viz skills, and then the number one that we're about to talk about. I think of these as kind of table stakes skills, and I see a lot of postings that have both Tableau and Power BI in them together,
Yes.
right? And so, even if a company is migrating from Tableau to Power BI, you still have to know Tableau, right? Like, and so I feel like kind of the demand has still been very at it's I mean apparently it's at its peak point, according to this report, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, interesting point. I see that as well. You see them grouped together a lot of times, Power
Hmm.
BI or Tableau,
Hmm.
both listed, because I think what they're looking for is really somebody who knows data visualization and best practices.
Right.
And
Yep.
I think that's
100%.
probably the skill that you want to focus on.
100% agree. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's get to the top number one skill set.
Okay, number one is SQL, and it's number one by a long shot. So this one has created some distance versus the rest of the pack. This one's been growing over time. It's been distancing itself from the rest. Is at 77% of positions
Wow.
mention SQL.
Yeah.
The duration of this report I'm looking at go back to, again, I have this filtered back to 2021. We were at 45% then.
Ooh, it's like
So
30% increase.
I know. And so pretty much because I mean, you think of 80/20 rule. I mean, this is getting to be a
It's
table
almost a
stake skill.
mandatory skill set.
Right. Hmm.
Like if you don't know
Yeah.
SQL, you're not getting an analytics job.
100%. Yeah. I think it's if you haven't invested in learning, the basics or intermediate level, now is the time to do it.
And there's no better time to do it now. There's so many resources out there to learn it, even for free.
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised by your list of top 10. It's nothing really stood out as I wasn't surprised. I think the one thing I was surprised about was cloud being number three.
Yeah,
That
and that's
it kind of snuck its way in there.
it snuck its way in there, and it's one that it's one that you could look at it in a couple different ways, and I'm sure there could be debates within the industry as to how to look at that. I'm not naive to that. Um, but it's got to be in the list because it's definitely a trend, like to what we were talking about
Yeah.
earlier. It's just however you want to look at it, it's organizations are wanting expertise, in that area, and it's becoming one of those tools in the data analyst arsenal that makes them more valuable, to have some experience. And you can break that one up a lot of different ways, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Yeah. And I know you talked about this at the top about you're not including AI in here, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's kind of a different I don't know, type of job. But but I think I don't know, I think knowing some AI will help you.
100%. And just staying up with like what the latest tools and technologies are, like for example, I did a podcast episode with Brian Julius, who's I consider one of the leading experts on MCP. We did a podcast just on model context protocol specifically. I think like immersing yourself in the capabilities in these topics, being aware of them, I think this is really going to be helpful to you as organizations continue to leverage AI, make AI more, core to their strategy, um, and core to their strategy in terms of generating insights, and for automation and things like that. But for the data and analytics related roles, there's still a lot of them. Actually, one of the insights that I had just in general, and as we close out here, is there's still a lot of, I don't think that we're seeing the explosive growth in data and analytics roles as, perhaps we've seen over the last 5 to 10 years, but
Hmm.
there's still a lot, there's 160,000 plus total data analytics jobs on LinkedIn in the United States. I just did a search for the, keywords data analytics. It's a lot of roles, right? I've got 50 or so total roles in my weekly rundown each week, and I'd say maybe a third, to half of those are data analytics related. And so there's a big population of roles still out there to be had. I think the tactics to get those roles, particularly at the entry level, has maybe changed a bit. And that gets into what we were talking about of, maybe you take the tactic of getting the industry experience, doing some analytics work, and then potentially
Yeah.
transferring into a role.
Do you think a lot of these roles that are out there are more senior level, or do you see still a lot of junior level roles?
So that's a really interesting question, and something that I see more anecdotally in my data jobs rundown is definitely a stronger number of senior roles. So I would say half or so of the roles in my data jobs rundown each week are senior analyst or above, and I think that's a reflection of the maturity kind of the data industry. I mean, at first, when data analytics took off, you didn't have many folks that were very experienced, right? Now you do. And now the pressure to use data has increased significantly over the years and has become core to many organizations' strategy. And so it makes sense that senior roles are going to emerge, manager roles are going to emerge, and that they're going to want to fill those roles. Organizations are with folks that have, more experience. I think at the analyst level, what's interesting there is when I look at one of the things I track is the years of experience that's asked for in the position posting. And when I look at the analyst level, so this is, a step below senior analyst, just the analyst level roles. I do see a creep up in terms of the number of years of experience. Yeah, I go back to 2019 when I started this. I'm looking at the full duration of this report. 2.4 years on average experience required there, up to 2.8, almost just under 3 years for 2025. And so we see interestingly the number of years of experience creeping up even at that level.
Yeah.
And that's where I don't think it's the only way to get into a role, right? But I do think that this path we were talking about of industry experience and then potentially gaining some analytic skills along the way and then transferring into an analyst role, getting in is I think the getting in is a little bit harder than it was a few years ago.
Yeah, I would agree. You want to talk a little bit about some of the salary range insights that you got
Uh,
from here?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So at a high level, going back to my statement on if you can get in, I think that data and analytics related roles are still really good from a salary perspective. When I look at the analyst level roles, I can look at the cool thing is since some states are now requiring salary ranges to be posted, I've actually been able to over the last couple of years track the salary range associated with the roles that had them listed. And for analyst level roles in this last report, I see a range of on the average low side 85K up to on the average high side 108K. And so for an independent contributor role, I think that's a pretty strong range,
Yeah.
right?
Or entry level, right?
And it depends on what you mean by entry level. I mean, I struggle to say entry level because when I look at the years of experience that they're asking for these roles, right?
Still
It's
3
saying
years,
2.8.
right?
It's it, right?
Yeah.
So it's not on average truly
Yeah.
entry level.
Right.
Yeah. But it's very early career stage, right?
Early career. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's a pretty strong salary range. This is US dollars and mostly US roles, by the way, that I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
And does location make a difference here?
So that's the one caution, right? Is that some of the states that do post or require salaries be posted are going to, I mean, some of the coastal states and things like that, maybe in higher population areas where it may skew higher. That being said, I mean, when I say that range 85K to 108, maybe it feels slightly high knowing the market, overall, but I still feel like most that I'm aware of, regardless of geography, are relatively close to that range. What would you say?
So, you know what I notice when you see job postings with the salary range?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a very broad range.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Okay. And when I look at that, I don't know what to make of that.
Hmm.
Sometimes I feel because they have to put a range in, they make it so broad.
Right.
And people tend to think that they can get the top end salary. I think it's very hard to get that top end
The top
salary.
end, yeah, for
You
sure.
have to
Yeah.
kind of in your head take a certain percentage off and realistically say that, I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know, 20%. That
Yeah.
that's probably the top end of that range.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that that's a very fair point and definitely very realistic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, the last insight I'd share on salary is just, and I think that this is, again, if you can get into a role, you can develop your skill set and kind of make a name for yourself. And there's all kinds of tactics for doing that beyond the scope of this conversation, right? But I'm sure in
Mm.
other conversations you've had on your podcast, if you can move up into a senior role or get really well established as an analytics expert in your organization, I think as you move up, there is an opportunity to slide up in salary as well. When I look at senior analyst roles, we've got a range of average low 113 to average high of 150 and a half, roughly.
Mhm.
So pretty nice salary range there. And when I look at the years of experience for senior analyst roles, it averages 4.04 years in this last report. So that's another one where when I think about for a role that you could have only 4 years of experience in and
Yeah,
reach that salary. Like it's pretty solid for a
that
professional.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the one thing that stood out to me as you mentioned. I'm like, only 4 years to get to that range.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's not bad.
And I think but the one thing that I'll caution folks listening is, first of all, 4 years from now, this may look different, right?
Yeah.
So, and then that's one thing. And then also, I think you have to do really good work and impactful work during those 4 years, right? Like I would say if you look at folks that get those senior analyst roles, they're folks that did the right projects, had the right skill set, they could tell a story with data, right? They could do kind of everything end to end to produce quality projects. And so it doesn't mean that just because you get 4 years of experience, you're going to automatically go to that level.
Here's what I think, and this is not something that's listed in your skill set because I think this
Hmm.
is something that you kind of have to do in your role. I think
Hmm.
ultimately the role of a data analyst is to solve problems.
Right.
If you become a good problem solver,
Hmm.
then you will be valuable, and that's where you'll
100%.
get the growth, right? It's not about just being good technically or building dashboards.
Hmm.
If you're leveraging that to solve problems for your stakeholders,
Hmm.
that's where the impact comes in. That's the bread and butter, and that
Totally.
is what will allow you to then increase and grow in your career.
100% agree, Nisar. Yep. Um, and
So
I'm looking at these. I was just going to say the last thing, Liz, I look at these dots that then go, I'm on a scatter plot of average high versus average low. We've got analyst, senior analyst, and then it goes up from there. It's almost linear. And that's the kind of things where I think you need to consider if you want to go up to manager, director, vice president, senior director, things like this. Um, you know, it goes well beyond the technical skills. You've got to
yeah.
get good at kind of all of it, right? But that being said, I think it's a fight worth going towards, especially if you're interested in managing people.
Mhm.
Um, you know, when I look at these ranges, Nisar on the higher end, even starting with manager, but certainly going up to director level and above. I mean, I'm seeing a pretty wide range up from average low to average high, like in some cases
Yeah.
over $100,000 difference, right? And so, if you can get that, thinking back to the report and the trends, right? If you can get that industry experience, that solid, well developed, skill set of technical skills, you can get the data storytelling down. You get some, management experience weaved in there with some other softer skills, right? And you make a
Mhm.
big impact, most importantly, over time. Like right now, the data tells me the sky is still the limit from a compensation perspective.
Yeah. So what is that top end compensation range looking like?
The highest one is going to be in the AVP head of roles and senior director, and that goes from 212 to 319.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, but again, that's also being a people manager, right?
100%. Yep.
So what about the individual contributor? Where is their
Mhm.
ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say because some manager roles are still independent contributor roles, and so I would say I'd look at the manager level role to really cap that ceiling. And again, it could go higher than this. I'm looking at it, the averages across 100 roles that I chose, but the average high salary for the manager level roles is 206. So when I go down to analyst and look at the average low, it's 85. So 85 to 206.
Right.
Right? Still a
Yes.
pretty big range, right?
It is a big range, right?
Yeah.
And also this is also we're talking about base salary, right? This does not
Correct.
include any bonuses or incentives or anything like that.
Correct. Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Yep.
So, I mean, my takeaway here is I think um, being a data analyst is still a very worthwhile career to get into. Not just from a compensation standpoint, but just, I think the skills that you learn and how you apply them. Um, and I don't know, it's, you talked about this 2 years ago. Um, and I think it was a different time then.
It
A
was.
lot has changed since then, but I still feel that the need for an analyst is still very much there.
It is. And I was just I agree with everything you said. The interesting thing is though, and this ties to the top, 5 skills or so that I see, what has not changed is when I look at SQL data visualization, and then I know it was a little bit outside of the top 5, but I think that it's really important if you want to move up, is when I look at SQL data visualization and storytelling, you
Yeah.
know, getting the data, right? Getting the data, cleaning it up, doing an analysis, telling a story with it. Like I see a lot of value in that skill set day to day. Right. So
100%.
yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
That's basically your your analytics workflow, is it not?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the
100%.
beginning to
Yep.
the end. So
Yep.
if that's your bread and butter, and if you can nail that, I think you'll get you'll do well in a career, and you'll get opportunities.
100% agree.
Listen, Dustin, I appreciate you walking through this data jobs report, and let us know where can people access this? Where will you post it? And how can people connect with you?
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I'll be posting it in pieces. So there's different parts of it. There's the skills, there's the education, there's the years of experience, the pay, things like that. I'll be posting it in pieces over the next 1 to 2 months on my LinkedIn profile. So it'll all be out there for free on my LinkedIn profile. You can easily find me, first name, last name, on LinkedIn. And if you want to subscribe to that data jobs rundown that I put out every week, every Friday, you can find that on my LinkedIn profile as well. You just have to subscribe to my LinkedIn newsletter, completely free. And like I said, delivered every Friday.
Perfect. Yeah, I will post the link in the show notes to Dustin's LinkedIn profile. So please do follow him. And Dustin, we met in person last year. Hope to meet
Yeah,
again this year.
absolutely.
Maybe at Tableau conference. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I may as well, but always good to see it. I know we'll cross paths again.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Justin.
All right. Thanks, you, Nisar. Yeah.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating or review. It really helps more data nerds discover the show. You can find all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, and more at thedatanerdpodcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your inner data nerd.